Okay, thank you. Ben asked what we're learning today in science. We are learning today Charlotte's going to tell us the 4 elements that make up 97% of our body.
Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen.
Great. And they say the word? Well, they give you the acronym HONK. That's what helps us remember it. HONK with a C, right? Hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon. Okay, 4 elements that make up 97% of our body. God made them sustainable. That means they will continue to keep on, keeping on, keeping on, keeping on. It's a continual resource that won't go away because God made biogeochemical cycles in order to keep those elements available to us. They don't run out if we take care of our planet. So we talked about the hydrogen part. We already did the water cycle. So we know where we get our water from and how it's a continual cycle. We're going to go ahead and do the oxygen-carbon cycle and find out how that is a continual cycle. So that's what we're doing today with our oxygen-carbon cycle drawing. There are how many parts to the oxygen-carbon cycle? How many parts, Mia?
2.
2 parts. One of them involves plants, the plant side, and the other side involves humans or animals, all right, living creatures. The plant side of it is called?
Photosynthesis.
Thank you. Write that in. Number 4, on this side of your chart, we're going to talk about the plant side of the cycle, which is photosynthesis. Put that in number 4 on your chart. Let me pull this back so my whole board is visible. There we go. All right. Photosynthesis.
Is it buried?
Write that in there. All right. Anyone want to give a shot at the definition for photosynthesis? Any brave soul, Michaela? The plant process of the carbon-oxygen cycle. Okay, that's great. I'm going to give you a little bit more detailed one, but you are exactly right.
It says it right there.
Where? Oh, on your sheet of paper? All right. A for being resourceful. Here's what it is. It is the process. This is right from your book. Okay, we'll learn this definition. It's the process that allows green plants to make their own sugar or food from sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide, and that releases oxygen into the atmosphere. So, let's talk about it here in this beautifully illustrated drawing I have up on the board. Yes, thank you. You're welcome. I'll sign this. You know, if you want me to sign your copy, then
Yes,
Sure. Yes,
there you go.
please.
Okay. Plants go through photosynthesis. All right. They need 3 ingredients. They make their own food and they produce some things. They need 3 ingredients to do this. Guesses on what those 3 ingredients are by looking at your chart. Jade?
Sun.
Well, okay, let's stop there. Sunlight, number 1. The first thing that plants need in the carbon-oxygen cycle is they need sunlight. So write that in number 1. Write that in number 1. All right, we've got number 2 and number 3. We've got all these things. What else do they need, Rocky?
Carbon dioxide.
They need carbon dioxide from the air, right? So we're going to put number 2 is going to be carbon dioxide, or you could also put CO2. It's a carbon molecule and 2 oxygens. CO2, carbon dioxide. So we've got 2 things. This plant is sucking up the sunlight. It's gathering carbon dioxide from the air. And what else does it need, Naomi? Water. Right? That's all it needs. Sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide from the air. It takes those 3 things, right? Mixes them up, goes through photosynthesis, and produces two things. 3 ingredients. The plants take them and produce 2 things. Right here, numbers 5 and 6 arrows, it's producing 2 things. What is it producing? Mia.
Is it like air for the person to breathe?
What element is that we need to breathe?
Oxygen?
Yes. It turns that carbon dioxide into oxygen, right, for the humans to breathe. I should have made this arrow go all the way over to this guy's mouth. Oxygen is what we need. What else does it produce other than oxygen for us to breathe? What else? Bo?
I was going to say air.
Okay, oxygen, you're right. It produces oxygen. What else? It produces food, right? Now don't write food down because we're going to get a little more specific than that. But this is how a plant provides food for itself. It takes these 3 things, mixes it up, uses it for food for itself. And also, do we eat plants? Yes. So it produces food for humans, for animals, for themselves. So technically, what that food is glucose or sugars. That's what it produces with the carbon dioxide and the H2O and the sunlight. It's producing, we're going to say sugars or glucose. I'd like for you to know both of those words. Basically, those words mean food. Food for the plant, food for the animals, food for us. But really what it's producing is glucose or sugar. Okay?
How do you spell glucose?
Glucose, glucose. Okay. Everybody got that written down?
Yeah.
So that's it for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis requires how many ingredients?
3.
3. The sun, right, takes from the sun, takes from the water, and takes from the air, carbon dioxide. 3 ingredients, and it produces how many things?
2.
2. Oxygen and food, glucose, sugar. Now we come to the people side. Remember, photosynthesis is the plant side. What is the human side of the carbon-oxygen cycle called? It's called cellular respiration. How do you spell that? Cellular. What's the root word of that? Cell. Cellular respiration. Cellular respiration. That's the human side, or the animal side also, of the carbon-oxygen cycle. Cellular means what? Yes.
The human process of the CO cycle?
Yes, the cellular respiration is the human process, but what does cellular mean? Why is it called cellular respiration? Cellular means having to do with what? Cells, right? The cells in our body. What is respiration? They may know the word respiration. Nope, but that'd be a good guess. Respiration is breathing. So it's cellular respiration, kind of like what your cells need to breathe, right? Okay, so this is the name of the process that humans go through in the cycle. Humans and animals in the cycle, they need 2 ingredients. What do you think they need? What 2 ingredients do you think humans need, Charlotte? Oxygen and food. Isn't that just a nice coincidence? What is the product of the plant side of the cycle? Oxygen and food, right? God made it so that plants give us what we need, not just to eat, but also to breathe. So we've got oxygen and food coming in, or glucose or sugar. What 2 things do humans produce? Okay, 2 ingredients. What do they give back out? Mia?
Either a baby or poop. Fertilizer?
Either a baby or poop. You are onto something there. Okay. That's a great answer, Mia. I love it. Okay. We do give out a cycle of reproduction that keeps, that would be called the life cycle, right? Human life. That is a different cycle we shall talk about at another given time. However, let's go with the poop part of it. Okay? Okay. Let's actually do this. Let's put the poop on hold for a second. We're going to talk about it because it's a part of this chart, actually, the poop is. But what else do they give out? Okay, so we're breathing in oxygen and we're taking in food. What does that produce, Jade?
Carbon?
It produces carbon in several forms. It produces, Zari, it produces carbon dioxide, right? Right here, what do we breathe out of our mouths? We breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide, CO2, or carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is what we breathe out. It also produces, the other thing it produces for us is energy, right? That we need to live. So I'm going to put right here on this guy's body, it produces energy so that he can live, so he can run around and, go do PE with Coach JW. So, cellular respiration requires two things, oxygen and sugar or glucose. It produces energy for us to live on, and it also produces carbon, which we breathe out. Okay, now we're back over to here. What does the plant need? The carbon that we just breathed out. And the sun and the water, right? So the plant, Lamaria, needs the carbon dioxide and breathes out the oxygen. We need the oxygen and we breathe out the carbon dioxide. The plant breathes in the carbon dioxide and gives out the oxygen. Now, what happens if all the plants in the world die? We die. We have nothing left to give us our oxygen, right? That's why we take care of the earth. That's why we take care of the plants. That's why we don't chop down acres and acres and acres and acres and acres of forestry. There needs to be some protection there to make sure we have enough green plants that keep our supply of oxygen going. Okay, so let's go back to the poop on the shelf that we left that Mia talked about. Thank you, Mia. Now, listen. We breathe out carbon dioxide. Carbon also leaves our body in another way, right? So, if you use the restroom and you poop, that poop goes in the toilet, it goes down the drainage, it goes into the ground. Are there elements in that poop? Are there elements? Yes, there's carbon in there, right? So the carbon goes back into the ground. It does. And we need it. And guess what? The plant, when the roots are down there, what's it pulling up? Not just water, but also carbon and elements. What else? When an animal is in the forest and a deer dies, right? It gets killed by a coyote or something. And a deer dies and it falls to the ground and it decomposes. The elements in that deer's apostrophe, the elements in its body go into the ground, yes? Into the ground. So that carbon goes into the ground. So over here, number 10, we have waste and death, right? Waste and basically decomposing bodies. Waste and death, and what's going into the ground is carbon. Okay, so on that arrow you're going to write carbon, and it's coming through our waste and animals that die, and their decomposing body and fossils all go into the ground. Yes? So write that in there, and then we'll do the last part of our cycle, which is like the man-made part of our cycle. Yes. Okay. All right, people. Last part of the cycle is this side part over here. all of this waste and this carbon that's in the ground and all the elements that are in the ground from all these dying animals and the fossils that are in the ground, we as mankind figured out how to drill into the ground and how to use those resources as fuel for our vehicles and as fuel for our houses and our factories. So on number 11, we're going to pull up from the ground this carbon and we're going to use it for fuel. What kind of fuel do you think this is called? It's a certain kind of fuel, blank fuel.
Gas?
Anybody? Yes?
I was gonna say it was oil.
It is oil. What kind of fuel is that? Yeah.
It's like, I don't know something.
I'll give you a hint. It comes from the fossils that are in the ground and the elements that they provide, Bo.
Fossil?
Fossil fuels. That's why they're called fossil fuels. They come from the dead stuff in the ground that provides the elements. Fossil fuels are extracted from the ground and used to run our cars and our machinery and our houses and our factories. Yes.
So like, so when we poop,
Yes.
we flush the toilet and then it goes to the ground. Is that what fuels our cars? Poop?
In essence,
Ew.
yes.
So that's why gas smells so bad.
No. Okay, I mean, in theory, I will say this. The elements that are in the ground, elements that are from fossil fuels, from decomposing coal. Okay, and this will kind of get into kind of forms of energy, which is a little bit more detailed than we have time for today. But in essence, decomposing bodies of animals and all the fossils that go into the ground and all the excrement and the carbon, what we pull out of the ground, like things like coal and oil, the elements of those fossils are going into the ground and we're extracting them. So does your poop necessarily totally generate a car?
Yes.
I don't really know enough about gasoline and oil and how that works, but I'll look into that a little bit more and see what exactly is it. I'm not sure. It's a good question. I don't know enough about fuel and oil and coal to know what the elements are that are actually, does carbon make up oil and coal? If carbon makes up oil or if carbon makes up coal, that's what we use for our buildings and for our gasoline and for our factories to run and for our, trains to run and for heat. So what makes up coal? I don't know the answer to that, but we should find out. Because Mia wants to know if our poop can run our cars. Because that's an interesting thought. Okay, so listen, the last part of this really quickly. If we're using fossil fuels to run our vehicles and our factories, those things also give off something, right? Comes out of your exhaust, comes out of those smokestacks. What is being produced back? Jade? More carbon in the form of carbon dioxide. And what do the plants need again? Carbon dioxide, right? So that goes into the air and so does ours. And it's a big circle. Do you see how it's a cycle? Yeah. As long as everybody does their part to keep their part going. Okay. So for a moment, you can take a few moments, make sure that's filled in, make sure your foldable is colored, and then we'll move on to math.